MAGA is the party of victimhood. These are the biggest reactive, meltdown, snowflake, titty babies on the globe right now. We saw what happened with Cracker Barrel, and it was a stage 5 meltdown. And all of this is to distract you from the fact that they are lying. They are lying to the public, and they lied to get elected. They're lying now, and they're trying to prevent elections from happening because these are evil MFers that know their policies are so wildly unpopular. They can't legislate them, and they can't take it to the ballot box and win the right way. So they create things to melt down about. Their newest one are escalators at the United Nations. Let's listen to Chief Propagandist Kara Lyon, KKK, fake Christian extraordinaire Levitt, on the absolute victimhood of these abject titty babies. Play the clip.
It does appear to be sabotage with the escalator and the teleprompter. What is the White House going to do about that?
Well, Jesse, that's definitely what it appears to be to me. And that's why I put out a statement earlier. Well, there was some concerning reporting over the weekend from the London Times, as you pointed out, that UN globalist staffers were basically plotting to set up the president of the United States. And first it was the escalator, then it was the teleprompter, and then Katie Pavlich from Town Hall, who we offered a seat in the press pool to cover the president's historic speech.
I've heard enough. As you can see, this is a nothing burger, and they have to completely have stage 5 meltdowns and be a victim. And last week it was the leftists with zero evidence that leftists had anything to do with the assassination / murder of Charlie Kirk. This week it's the globalists. And this whole word globalist is something that goes hard really big on the right wing. I remember this past spring, I was in an event for my son, and there was a guy there, kind of redneckish guy, and he's talking to us, and he was like, yeah, well, you know, such and such is kind of real liberal, like an Obama liberal. And I perked my ears up and I go, I'm kind of an Obama liberal, but even like further. And he goes, really? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, just as long as you're not a globalist. And I said, what is a globalist?
Right.
Can you define it for me? And the man was like, well, it's and I go, what is it? Define what a globalist is for me. Of course, he couldn't define it because this is the party of victimhood and buzzwords where they get their marching orders from Jesse Waters. And then when they want to hit the hard drugs, they go over to like Alex Jones and Ben Shapiro.
All of this because he had to walk up a flight of stairs. I mean, is it that big of a fucking deal? Apparently it is.
When you have a foot that drags and swollen ankles and a heart condition, I mean, I think that was a lot. That's a lot to ask of that guy in his completely frail, fragile physical health that he's in.
You know, you're right about that. And that's probably why it was such a big deal, because most people would be like, oh, the escalator's broken, I'm walking up the stairs. And this is a guy that all throughout his campaign, I don't need a teleprompter because I'm so great. I can memorize everything. And the first words out of his mouth are, well, the escalator was broken and the teleprompter is broken and somebody must be against me. And I am sick to death of the victimhood. Do they ever get tired of it? Do they ever get tired of being the problem? And people acting like it's a 5-alarm fire. I'm like, what about people that are not receiving their Medicaid benefits? What about kids that are hungry? I mean, there's a gazillion problems. The escalator just ain't one.
This is intentional because the top of the fold, the lead should be United States president humiliates himself in rambling, incoherent speech on the UN floor, wherein he degrades our allies and the rule of law. That should be the story, but they cannot run that story, so they make shit up. And here's another chief propagandist, Jesse Waters, with, you know, we're going to tone the rhetoric down. The left is so crazy. They're so violent. Listen to this.
What's going on with the escalator? What do you think?
Yeah, they sabotaged them.
Yeah.
And they could have hurt the first lady.
Yeah.
Trump would have fallen and he would have gotten back up. But, you know,
they would have blamed it on his rhetoric.
And then they sabotaged the teleprompter.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an insurrection. And what we need to do is either leave the UN or we need to bomb it. It is in New York, though. Right?
Imagine if Rachel Maddow said that. Imagine if Rachel Maddow said something like that. The stage 5 meltdown that these titty baby snowflake victims would have. I don't think that's appropriate, but I'm not going to have a meltdown over it because this is just a Wednesday on Fox News. This is just what they do. And I do think he's joking, but I also think it's wildly dangerous because you have a lot of freaks that sit around and watch Fox News. And so they have to satisfy their default setting for violence and civil war. And at the end of the day, the constant narrative that has come out of this administration is that Americans need to fight with each other. Our positioning to protect our national security has been completely eroded. Trump eroded it yesterday at the UN, telling our allies that their countries were going to hell, denying climate change, which is an existential threat. But they can't talk about that. So they have to say, Trump was sabotaged and Melania could have been injured. She's in such terrible shape, I guess. Right. She can't walk up a flight of stairs because these people are pussies.
Well, I thought it was a nod to the strong man when he said Melania would fall. I mean, if Trump fell, he'd get right back up. And we all know that if Trump fell, it would take a crane to get his fat ass up. But, the flippancy with which they talk about violence is stunning to me. We had last week the one guy saying, involuntarily lethal inject homeless people. Jesse Waters wants to bomb the UN. And then Laura Ingraham made some snide remark about ICE beating up civilians, like good for them. And I just think, is that where we are as a country, that we want to glorify violence while at the same time blaming the left for rhetoric? I mean, I just don't
It's a classic abuser tactic. They're using projection. Their default setting is violence. And you can see it through all of their right-wing influencers. You can see it through their main propaganda channel. You can hear it from the administration. We've got to fight, fight, fight the enemy from within. They are the ones that are violent, but then they gaslight the public and project that the left are the violent ones when most liberals I know are so anti-gun, they don't even own guns. Right. And so this is a classic abuser technique that is used in this propaganda machine from the top all the way down to all of the arms of the propaganda. It's intentional. It's intentional that they talk about violent things while then gaslighting their audience and saying it's okay when we do it, but they're the problem. And it's a classic. I mean, you can even take it to a relationship when a man is abusing a woman, says it's her fault that happened. And so this even happens with governments. And then here we go. Midas Touch documents this is just a sampling of the meltdown. This guy, Chernovich, says what happened today at the UN was a dry run for an assassination. Our enemies were able to see the reaction or lack thereof. Trump was a sitting duck. Extreme measures must now be taken against the UN, including leaving the UN totally. And of course, Mike Lee, he chimes in, and all these other dipshits, Alex Jones, they can't talk about the top story, which was covered in the international press, which was that the president of the United States is frail. He's lost his mind. He's lost all sense of democracy, all sense of diplomacy, appears to have dementia. That's what the world read. If you live in MAGA world, you read this and then you're mad at your fellow Americans, because I always go back to this one thing. Vladimir Putin said that he was going to tear America up from within without having to send one bullet or launch one missile. And it's happening. And he has laid the groundwork for that. And so while these outward right-wing influencers and Fox put all that on, there are literally rooms full of cell phones that are bots that are being operated to feed all of this victimhood civil war narrative. And it's just utterly insane that we can't sit here and talk about that we have a massive problem with this man who is incompetent. He clearly needs to be impeached because he accidentally sent what was intended to be a DM for the DOJ to cook up evidence against his political enemies. That is impeachable. immediate. That even goes a little bit beyond January 6th there. It's so black and white. But the impotent Congress isn't going to do a goddamn thing about it because they're on Twitter talking about this escalator incident. All right, let's take a break from the news to hear from our sponsors. You guys, I'm not a huge makeup person and I have to wear it because we're on camera all the time. That's why I'm so happy that we have found Jones Road. Jones Road takes a natural approach to makeup. I love their lip glosses, their powders. It is just this effortless, fresh application of makeup.
I like it because I use the Miracle Balm and it really is a miracle. It enhances my skin and instead of masking with different layers of makeup. And I just feel so much shinier and happier when I have it on.
Not to mention that, but all of the formulas are clean and very high performing. It doesn't have a lot of the toxins and things that other makeups have in it. Listeners, modern day makeup that's clean, strategic, and multifunctional for effortless routines. For a limited time, our listeners are getting a free cool gloss on their first purchase when they use the code IHIP at checkout. Just head to jonesroadbeauty.com and use code IHIP at checkout. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you.
Acting like the escalator is a big deal. I think, honestly, I know they're on Fox News saying, oh, it's the unvarnished truth. What a leader. But because the international community was so appalled and thought Trump was such a lunatic, I think the best thing to come out of it for the right wing, because he was so bad, is to talk about the escalator. Because if you talk about what he actually said and did and how it was received, it would be such a black eye on this feeble, demented man.
And Mehdi Hassan has some great reporting here. Here's what actually happened. A U.S. videographer from the Trump team accidentally broke the escalator prior to the Trumps stepping on it. Fox hosts and White House flunkies can stand down. That's what happened. And here's another thing. The teleprompter was being run by a White House official. The incompetence of these two things, the escalator was in fact sabotaged by somebody that works for Trump, and the teleprompter was sabotaged by somebody that works for Trump. The very same way that Tyler Robinson, they have been trying to find a smoking gun to put in front of everybody that he's a radical leftist. All that remains is him hanging out with his deeply MAGA family with a bunch of guns. They don't have jack shit on this. And so they have to send out their propagandists. And the speech was so bad, they roll out just a non-stop, all-you-can-eat buffet of stupidity. And the first one they roll out is DL, Demon Queen, Lindsey Graham. And this girl, you guys, I mean, she must be so compromised. They must have so much goods on her to keep her in line. She comes out, little sis Graham, she comes out and says this on national television.
This guy's a cross between P.T. Barnum and Ronald Reagan. He's in everybody's head. God bless you, President Trump, for standing up in the UN and telling the world the way it is. We don't have to live this way. We don't have to live with a Europe that's buying Russian oil at the time we're all trying to stop the war with Russia and Ukraine. So I hope he runs again. You know,
Okay, so they have to send out and say, oh, it was such a great speech. Of course, they're not playing the clips of the speech because they have to only show the escalator, and they're showing the part about the teleprompter, and they're like, oh my God, fire alarm emojis. Trump is going, is socking it to the UN. And then they roll out DL Demon Queen, Sister Graham, to propagandize that somehow this was a W for the White House. And it was an L across the board. Everything from his own staff being so incompetent that they triggered the stop down of the escalator. They were too incompetent to load his teleprompter properly. And then he goes on one of his rambling, incoherent, I just escaped from the memory care wing of the nursing home speeches. And they have to send out these people to try to paint it in a different light because that's all they have. All they have is propaganda. And their sole thing that they told you they were going to run on, we're going to defeat the enemy from within, is so wildly dangerous that their whole ethos, their whole party platform is to pick a fight with the left. And there's a huge difference in what they want and what we want. We want free speech. They want forced speech and false speech. So a little bit of alliteration there with all of the F's. There's free speech that we all want, and then they lie to you. And what they want is false speech via propaganda and forced speech. They want to force you to like them, and they are unlikable. And Lindsey Graham needs to come out of the closet, put everybody out of their misery so that our long national Lindsey Graham nightmare can end. And then we can move on to the next DL demon queen that we are going to help facilitate to come out of the closet so they can stop this nonsense. All right, that's all we have. Like, subscribe. We'll see you later.